Hello, everybody. This is your host, Christian, and today we have Madhu. Madhu, welcome to the Ledger Show.
Thank you, Christian. Happy to be here.
Yeah, my pleasure. So, do you want to give a little introduction about yourself to the audience?
No, absolutely. As I said, happy to be here. My name is Madhu. I'm originally from India, born and raised. I moved to Europe about 6 years ago. I have a background in economics. I also worked about 3 to 4 years in capital markets. So that's really my starting. So I worked in public markets, trading, equity research for about 3 to 4 years, and then moved to Europe for my MBA in France in RCP, and then moved to Berlin. And it's been five years in Berlin. So that's been a while. And it's also been a long time since I've been away from home and kind of found my new home in Berlin. But that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, it looks like a while, right? 5 years.
It seems longer, but it's not been that long.
Yeah, I remember when we first met the first time in Farm. In such a small office, and I think it was in Glockenstrasse.
Yeah, exactly.
And then from there, now you work at Moonfare. How's it like to run a finance function and to grow together with the finance function in a startup?
So my experience at Infarm was really my first, let's say, corporate finance experience, because before that I was much more in public markets, like trading and things like that, so very different. So when I kind of entered corporate finance, it was with Infarm, and at that time we were about 100 people in the company, so very small compared to kind of recent times. So the finance function itself, if you would call it, was an accounting function, right? So I think there's a difference always. I think when you have small startups, when you're growing, the first very basic thing you put in place is an accounting function where you have accounts payables, accounts receivables, admin expenses, these kind of things. So the function was much more like this. And what I exactly did was actually did a lot of financial accounting. It was a good base for me to get also because I didn't have that kind of formal training or a formal accountant, by education and training. So it was good to have that. I was in charge of AR, so kind of the revenue management of the company. So it was good to have that base in accounting, financial accounting at Infarm. But what we didn't have back then was also like the strategic finance part, which at the time when you're a startup of less than 100 people, it's not the most natural thing to have it, right? As you grow, you think more strategic, you think more FP&A, you want that, you have more financing rounds coming, more institutional, and then you grow that function out. And then after a year at Infarm, I moved to Moonfare, and it's been almost 4 years at Moonfare. So that's really been the long cycle. And when I joined Moonfare, I was also like the first real kind of employee within the finance team, other than the head of finance at the time. So he and I kind of did everything together until a very long time, and then slowly kind of built out the team after. And the same, there was kind of the accounting setup established, right? And then comes like the reporting setup where you have some shareholders, some investors, and you need to report to them. So you kind of build that out, and then comes the budgeting and the planning, forecasting. You build more processes around it. You have a more full-fledged kind of financial model behind it. So, and then you build out FP&A and kind of strategic finance parts after that, and then slowly build out the other functions that come.
So you said you were doing pretty much everything when you started at Moonfare. So it means AR,
Yes.
AP, budgeting, I guess some reporting for the stakeholders. Okay, it feels like a lot.
Exactly. It was a lot. I think the first year at Moonfare was a bit of a drowning situation where, of course we had external accountants who did the actual bookkeeping, but internally you have to still check the bookkeeping. You need to make sure everything's booked correctly. You have to form the financial statements, and then you have to report using it. You need to create a budget to control against, and you need to explain to shareholders why you did well or not as well. So I think all of that kind of came together. And that was like my first year at Moonfare, building those kind of things out along with our head of finance. And we did all of that together for a long time until we really wanted to then build out, let's say, accounting separately, accounting admin processes, all of that as a separate kind of smaller function within finance. And then we have FP&A as another function where you do planning, budgeting, forecasting. You then also do things like business analytics, right? You look into the data, you understand the business, you support sales, marketing, more business partnering there. And also doing things like performance management, coming up with KPIs to define performance of teams. And you were looking at so much data, you also want to then go into the data and make sure the data is correct. So then data integrity, data quality comes up. And that's when finance and BI become best friends. And then comes the financing rounds, which then is like a night job. In addition to your day job, and then financing rounds kind of like come in and take over your time, right? And then more so.
I never experienced that from the finance perspective. It's like really a lot of work.
Yeah, well, I mean, you need a very effective team. Even today in Moonfare, finance is the smallest team. I mean, you don't need typically a lot of people to kind of do the job, but still to be only kind of 6 full-time employees with a couple of part-time, it's, of a business of this size, we're global, we're not just European based, and quite big compared to 3-4 years ago. Still quite a small team, I would say, and in that sense, quite effective. You need to be.
Yeah, that's interesting. What are like, from your perspective, the flagging moment when a company or a team decides, okay, we need to get better at how we do finance, like we need to hire more people, we need to set some structure in place?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you don't take it day by day, right? You need to really analyze what's working and what's not. I mean, even when you start with the reporting side, if you're reporting 20 days after the month end, you're probably a little bit late. There are market standards on how fast should reporting go out, T plus, 7-8 days to get your financial statements ready, plus another 3-4 days to get your reporting ready. Because if kind of management and the board is looking at data more and more frequent and earlier, the better decisions they can take. Because your reporting is not just reporting, hey, this is what's happened, but also looking a little bit more into insights, right? You're trying to drive decisions using data and the numbers. So you're no longer this kind of just kind of putting numbers out there and confusing people. How do you find how to improve this? I think you need to go, as I said, step by step, right? You need to have a very good accounting foundation, bookkeeping systems, consolidation systems where you can get to very, let's say, trustworthy consolidated financial statements and numbers. And then you build on top of it, or parallelly, a very good budgeting tool system, Excel model, however you want to do it. And you should be able to control against these numbers. And in the end, for me, it's like you need to drive decisions using these tools and numbers. If you're not doing that, if you're not driving the company in that sense towards a stronger top line, getting less and less negative and more positive bottom line, then you're not doing a job in that sense. So you need to be driving towards those things along with the company's strategy to get there eventually, because in the end, that's all matters.
Do you think that usually like the low headcounts of the finance function and maybe also the fact that often it's like lagging behind from, an implementation perspective from technology is because it's seen as a back office instead of as a core function?
Exactly. I think that's what's changing, right? If you look at CFOs before, they were more like the audit backgrounds and the accounting backgrounds and just enough to do like all the regulatory necessities in order, right? Like kind of put those things in place, the controls. So it's moving away from the necessity to more like what can the finance function drive, right? You should be able to drive top line improvements. You should drive bottom line improvements. You're not just a support function in that sense. You need to be driving the financial health of the company. And I think that's kind of the shift. I think I was also reading another article the other day that, audit firms and accounting tax advisor firms are running out of people because of the rise of FP&A and strategic finance, right? Because they understand they can actually use those skills to drive businesses, to, drive kind of decision making in these kind of things, and not just in jobs that are more the necessities of a business. So, it's kind of splitting now into two, and this side is growing more and more, which is good for a business. If you don't analyze the data and don't understand it, you're not making then effective decisions, right? So I think in that sense, it's changing. In terms of resources of the team, yes, always can be more. I think we are always a bit understaffed. But also I think here I would focus more on tech. I would focus more on the tools, right? Because you don't need like an army to be running things. You need effective systems. Then 2 people can do the job of 4 or 5 if you have an effective system in place. Also, it makes your life easier. You're spending less time on manual work, repetitive work, but using your brains for more forward-thinking, strategic initiatives. So I think that's probably the way to go.
That was a pretty good answer. You mentioned FP&A a couple of times, and I saw you're hiring right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, we are hiring for an FP&A manager. Okay. I always stress the importance of the function. Accounting is the basics. You need to have it, and that needs to be, pretty good accountants in place. And then the next step you need to go is to really hire a good budgeting specialist, someone who can also do kind of business partnering with teams, and that's the next step you need to perfect in that sense. So yeah, we're hiring for an FP&A manager. Please do reach out.
Okay, please. And if I'm not mistaken, you're moving into a leadership position, so you were acting as a head of finance.
Yeah. I would say it's a mix of right place at the right time, but also kind of a lot of work that's gone into this place. I had a very good manager for the last many years at Moonfare, who I've learned a lot from, who I've learned all this from today, right? I'm able to do this job today. It's also because I've learned kind of most of it from this person. So I'm grateful to have good leaders, grateful to have good mentors around me, and also the environment in Moonfare pushes you. It pushes you into roles you never thought you could do, tasks you never thought you would do, projects you never thought you would finish. So it's this kind of environment that motivates and pushes you. And if you like it, you can thrive in it. And I think that's what's happened with me. I've been here now 4 years. Seems like a lifetime. In a startup can always seem longer. Yes. And yeah, so very recently, last 6 months, I've been acting as head of finance at Moonfare, soon to be moving more permanently into the role. So very exciting and still excited, yeah.
Can you share some of the maybe mind shift that you had to somehow recognize from moving from, I don't know, maybe a more hands-on to a leadership position?
I think that's exactly the challenge. You need to stop, kind of move away from doing everything yourself, surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, who are more able than you, right? You need to be the leader to push people around you, right? You need to be the person to tie things together. You don't need to necessarily be the person doing everything yourself, and then you're kind of going into the detail and not having the bird's eye view anymore. I think that for me was the challenge, to like move away from being someone who does things personally, hands-on, kind of being in a startup field as well, but to move away from this a bit more, move to a more bird's eye view, make sure everything ticks and ties, works, we're pushing forward, we're improving, we're in line with the business's strategy, we're improving the financial health of the company, right, in line with OKRs. I think there's a lot of orchestration. But I would get bored if I don't do things by myself, so I still keep some part of the pie. I still like working on, financial models or something's interesting. Modeling out certain things is always interesting to figure out yourself, or when you're doing a new ERP or like an EPM tool, it's also interesting to learn about what tools out there, what are the new functions. And for me, the main learning has also been like kind of really more strategic. To learn to use people, have the right people around you on the right projects, and kind of streamline your function, your tasks with the overall strategy. That's when you're kind of moving together and not moving kind of in your own pace and doing and working in silos, which we don't want.
You mentioned OKRs. Do you have any suggestion for finance team that they're trying to set up like OKRs?
Yeah. We don't have that much of a problem setting up OKRs. Okay. We've had it in that sense easy, because we always wanted to drive quite a few initiatives forward, right? I think let's even check margin improvements. margin improvement is actually an OKR for finance, because a lot of people think about it as a sales initiative, or it's more to do with other commercial teams. But it can do also with finance, because it can do with things like cost control, it can do things like pricing, can do restructuring a bit differently, or hiring resources differently. It can include a lot of different things that from a finance perspective you can actually drive quite well. So I think margin improvements, a lot of things can fall under margin improvements. I mean, we always have too many, and then we have to kind of shorten it. That's always a good OKR to have, and also to drive decision making using data, right? So when you are working so much with data, so much with reporting, what are you doing by presenting 50 slides? Every month you're making endless number of decks and presentations. But what's the goal? The goal there is to give a very succinct message. This is what happened. This is why it happened. This is how we can improve. It needs to get to that level. I mean, that's when like a management team or a board, I mean, they don't have time to go through 50, 100 slides, not every month at least. So then you really have to drive, how do I drive decision making using the data I have at my disposal? That should be an OKR. So I think objectives should be a little bit more high level, right? What do you intend to do? And the KRs should be really like more measurable, that feed into that objective. So I think in that sense has been not that difficult to set them.
Are you trying to move to like real-time capabilities for monitoring, for visibility on your data, reporting?
I think on a financial perspective, it's been monthly, right? I mean, we form monthly financial statements, and real-time that is difficult, right? Even for revenue calculations, we have very complicated and necessary revenue structuring, and so it's difficult to do it real time at this time. But we also do a lot to do with commercial data, right? So a lot to do with client data, commercial data, do cohort analysis, understand behaviors of clients, how can we improve it, has it become better or worse. So this kind of stuff, definitely real time. And when we do things like performance management, when we do things like determining KPIs for teams, a lot of this can be real time, right? Because this is very driving efficiency within the company. And also, like, if you were part of a company and you want to like wake up every morning and look at one page dashboard, it needs to be like the 5 main KPIs of the business. Everyone needs to look at it all the time to know what's defining success. Stuff like that, definitely real time. On the financials, more difficult.
Okay. Let's switch to your focus and the challenges for 2023. What's in your bucket?
Yeah, I think I would put that together, right? I think from a scale-up startup point of view, always I would think like the slogan or the goal was grow, grow, grow at any costs. Just keep growing, bring in new ideas. Let's do initiatives ABC, and let's just go. It's moving away from that to let's grow, but let's grow sustainably. Let's not burn cash unnecessarily, and do a more focused and sustainable growth, right? So I think it's moving away from grow at any costs to not at any costs, at only justifiable costs. So that brings you to a more, you should still grow, you should still do initiatives that drive your margin improvements, that have more innovative products where you don't need to like spend a huge amount of money. That means you put ROI per every investment you make in the company, every market you want to go to, you want to expand to, you want to do a new product, new initiative. Let's do a business case. Let's understand the real benefits of this to the business. Let's put an ROI for every spend you want to make. So that really brings a more focused growth, I would think. So that for me, it's like you need to get more focused. Otherwise, you're not getting ready for the new environment, right? You can't do the 15 different things that you were doing before. You need to come down to 10. You need to come down to 7. Do it very well, and definitely put more emphasis on profitability eventually.
Okay. So I guess, like you said, focus and challenges are part of the same picture.
Yeah, exactly. So the challenge is to shift, I would think, right? Because you are a scale up, you've been thinking a certain way, you've hired people who think a certain way. and then to shift from that mindset, right, to move towards more commercial mindset in that sense of like think about the company's bottom line as well as the top line. That mindset shift is a challenge, right? And you focus on your top 7 initiatives, and you kind of go for it. You can't do 15, 20 things at the same time. It's no longer feasible. So focus on the main ones and do that excellently well.
Do you think that as a finance team, as a finance function, it's also somehow easy to align the company around this kind of challenges? Like, okay, we need to change the mindset, but how we go about revenues and growth, about ROI.
We talk about it a lot within Moonfare, right? I mean, we talk about a little bit more high performance culture. What does that mean? And that means we as a company need to think about things in the same way. So we do like kind of teach-ins or like some sessions within the company, right, where we talk about this is how we think about the future, this is how the next 2 years are going to go, this is the budget, and so on, right? And then we talk about how do we get there, what are the different initiatives we have this year that we need to complete to get there, and what kind of mindset or personality or attitude you need to get there. So we actually talk about that a lot because we do think that it's not just skills, it's mindset, it's attitude, it's a lot of those things, including leadership. So I think, reiterate the point quite a lot. And also within the finance team in that sense, we also have, I think, a lot of weekly check-ins regarding such topics. If margin improvement is one of your OKRs, you're talking about it constantly. You're talking to team leads, you're talking to other teams on what are the different things that one can do. Yeah, it's not just cost control, but it's like to think about things more in a better way, in a more efficient way. We don't pick up the phone and engage different advisors and counsel and so on for 15 different projects to do anymore, but you think about it in a more innovative way where you say, okay, I do these 4 projects at this time and I've completed, I get a proper, very tangible benefit from it, and then I move on to the next one. It's a mindset shift. It's definitely difficult. And when you come in from a finance point of view, and then the head of sales is coming from a commercial point of view, and they say, hey, no, we can't just blindly increase prices and so on. We need to look at all of these other attributes. And then you have to think, you need to put yourself in their shoes and they need to put themselves in your shoes. Like, you can't be like, oh, I'm from finance and I only talk like this. No, understand the business, understand your product, understand the market, right? You can't live in silos. You need to understand each other's perspectives. I think in the end comes down to communication. You need to communicate better. You need to love working with your, colleagues and peers and learn from them. I learn a lot from commercial every day because I learn the commercial aspect and they learn kind of the financial aspect from us. So I think in that sense, a daily challenge, but I think nothing better than getting through that, right? I think you get a better output in the end.
Yeah, I think it's time to wrap up on this closing note. Are you ready for a quick fire round of questions?
Okay.
So what book would you recommend to our audience?
What book?
Yep.
Currently, I'm reading a book on Founders Pocket Guides. It's a series.
Okay.
I think on cap table, on term sheets, it's a very quick, easy, fun read. It's like a list of 5 books where you learn about more like if you want to do a venture deal or if you want to do learn quickly about how the cap table works, how a term sheet will work, and these kind of valuation questions. It's really like anyone can understand. It's called the Founders Pocket Guide series.
Okay, good one. What are the places that you plan to visit this year?
What are the places I want to visit this year?
Yep.
I will do North Africa already.
Oh.
I will do one, always in summer, there's one Southern European city chosen. So summers that, so I'll do North Africa, 1 or 2 countries in H1. And then I think Christmas time is mostly back in India.
Okay. What's one of your main passion outside of work?
Dance. I'm a dancer.
Okay.
Originally, like from the day I was 4 years old, I have been dancing. It's not so frequent anymore. I think the older you grow, you find less time to dance. But dance is definitely a passion. It's a huge part of my personality, of the way I am today. So I would encourage other people to take it up.
Is there anything in particular that you're learning right now?
Learning. I'm learning how to make Tableau dashboards myself.
Okay.
Because I think asking all the time BI or people in my team can get exhausting. I'm okay at SQL, so also like to kind of improve SQL code writing and making Tableau dashboards by myself. I'm doing this right now.
Okay. What's one of your favorite restaurants in Berlin?
In Berlin, I like Night Kitchen.
Night Kitchen. Okay. Yeah, I never tried this one, and I should put it on
and also
my list.
No Name. No Name is also very nice.
No Name. Okay. I have to.
You can try
okay. So if people want to find out more about Moonfare, they can check the website, moonfare.com. And if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
LinkedIn.
Okay.
They can find me on LinkedIn.
So I'm going to share your LinkedIn profile inside the show notes. Madhu, it was a pleasure to have you on the show today. Thank you. Wishing you the best.
Thank you so much, Kristen. It was a lot of fun. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.